One thing that surprises a lot of new riders is the lack of visibility from their mirrors when they start riding a motorcycle. This week on MCrider, we'll talk about proper mirror adjustment and usage while riding a motorcycle. Hey, my name's Kevin. I'm the host here at MCrider, where I release a weekly video on motorcycle skills or road strategy every Friday morning. Hope that you'll hit the subscribe button and hit that bell icon. You'll get future notifications of all MCrider videos. When it comes to picking the proper gear or equipment for a motorcycle, for me, I'm very much a function over form kind of guy. If it doesn't work right or doesn't help me ride better, I have no desire in putting something on that's just going to make the motorcycle look better. And if you've done any shopping for motorcycle mirrors in the past, you know that it's much more form over function when it comes to motorcycle mirrors. So you have to be careful what type of mirrors you put on a bike, because you could greatly reduce the amount of visibility that you've got going on behind you. Putting some of those really small mirrors on a motorcycle really reduces the amount of visibility that you've got going on behind you. And it gives you no room to complain if somebody runs up on the back of the bike and you don't see them coming. It's kind of like the guy who rides in all dark clothing, takes all the reflectors off his motorcycle, and complains that people can't see him when he's coming down the road. A lot of times what we do puts ourselves in a worse condition out on the street, and selecting proper mirrors for your motorcycle is one such thing that could put you really in a bad position if you get something that doesn't allow you to see clearly what's coming up behind. Even with the stock mirrors on a whole lot of motorcycles, what new riders notice mostly is that all they can see is their elbows when they're riding down the road. There are a few things that you can do to help with that, to help see your blind spots a little better. You guys have noticed that I've got blind spot mirrors on some of my motorcycles. The trick to that is you have to find one that's big enough to be usable, because a lot of them are really, too big to fit on a motorcycle mirror, or they're too small. I got some at a Cycle Gear one time. They were way too small to be of any use on the motorcycle. So you've got to find something that, doesn't overwhelm the mirror, that still allows it to do what it's supposed to do, and yet it's big enough that you can use it out on the street. You can also find stem extenders or mirror extenders for a lot of bikes, and all those do is they go in between the mirror and the handlebar and allows the mirror to be moved out a little bit further to get it away from your elbow. But aside from adding something to your mirrors or extending them out a little bit, a lot of riders simply don't have their mirrors adjusted properly. So how do you know when your mirrors are adjusted properly? Well, if you get on your motorcycle and you sit and you get in your normal riding position, your hands up on the hand grips, you're going to see some of your elbow in that motorcycle mirror. There's just, unless they're really wide, like on a Honda Goldwing, those mirrors are really wide. But on most bikes, you're going to see some of your elbow or some of your torso in that mirror. And, I kind of tuck my elbows in occasionally when I want to get a really good view behind me, but you also want to make sure that your mirrors are adjusted properly. In a car, you've got a left and a right mirror, and you've got a rear view mirror that allows you to see what's coming up behind, and then the two side mirrors that allow you to see further left and right. Well, on a motorcycle, you've just got the two mirrors, and the most important thing for you to know what's going on is what's coming up behind you. So you need to make sure your mirrors are adjusted properly. So let's get back on our motorcycle. We're sitting with our hands on the hand grips in the riding position. You want to adjust the mirror out enough so that your elbows are showing on that inner portion, the inside portion of the mirror. If you turn them in too much, you think that that's going to help you see further or better what's coming up behind you. But what you want to do is actually move them out so that your elbows show on that inside portion. You're still going to have the same view of what's coming up behind you, but by turning them out on the left and right, That's going to also give you a broader field of view of what's coming up from the left or the right behind the motorcycle as well. So most riders turn them in too much, trying to get a better view behind them. What you want to do is turn them out to that point where your elbows are just to the inside portion of that mirror. That's still going to allow you to see behind you and yet see further to the left and the right that you would otherwise. Here's an animation that I came up with to better illustrate what we're talking about. Here's a motorcycle going down the road, and this is what most riders can see the way they have their mirrors currently adjusted. So they've got a view of the left and the right, but they've got that big overlap section right in the middle of their view. And if they just adjusted their mirrors out, they could greatly increase what they can see to the left and the right and still maintain good visibility with what's directly behind them. But even with properly adjusted mirrors, there is one thing that it can't substitute for, and that's this. When you get ready to change lanes, change the lane to the left, you got to get used to that head check. You got to check that blind spot every time you change lanes, every time you move out. Here in the States, we call that a head check. Overseas, they probably have a better name for it, a lifesaver, and that may very well be what it is, that you want to know what's in that blind spot, because no matter how well you've got your mirrors adjusted, there's still going to be blind spots on your motorcycle, and you got to turn that head to check that blind spot prior to changing lanes or moving out when you don't know what's coming up behind you. You know, the vast majority of motorcycle accidents happen ahead of us. And while we need to know what's going on behind us, it's a lot more important that we keep our focus and our attention of what's going on ahead. But there are times when we need to know what's coming up behind us or what may be in our blind spots, and proper mirror use or use of a head check can greatly help keep us out of danger situations when we get used to checking the mirrors and performing a head check. So we mentioned earlier those head checks. Anytime you're changing lanes, anytime you're moving out, you want to check that blind spot before you do so to make sure nothing's coming up. And when I'm riding down the road, anytime I go to the brakes at all, if I'm slowing down, right as I'm slowing down or right before, I'm checking that mirror because I want to know if I've got a car coming up quickly behind me or if I've got a car that may not see that I'm slowing down. So anytime I slow down or stop, I'm checking that mirror to see what's coming up behind me. And another situation, when I'm at a stoplight or a stop sign, I've got the bike in gear, I've got the clutch squeezed in, I've got my foot on the rear brake, and I'm looking at that mirror. I'm watching the car behind me until I get a car or two behind come to a complete stop. Then I can relax a little bit. The last thing you want is to be a sitting duck, especially on a motorcycle at a red light, and hope that that car behind you gets to a stop. Now, I've never been rear-ended on a motorcycle, but I was sitting at a stoplight one time in a pickup truck, and man, I'd been sitting there for a good 20 seconds, and sitting at that red light, and I hear the tires screeching behind me, and you know how you kind of flinch up, waiting for the impact, and that car slid a good distance and came up underneath the bumper of the truck that I was driving, and I got out of the truck, and the first thing the driver said was, "Oh man, that was my fault." And it was, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I've been sitting there for 20 seconds, and the guy ran into me. But drivers get distracted. And, you know, I drove away from that one with very little damage to my truck. In that incident, it would have been a whole different thing had I been sitting there on a motorcycle. So it's up to us to keep that bike in gear, to keep watching the mirrors, and to make sure the cars behind us are coming to a stop. And if they don't, we need to have an escape plan in place so that we can get out of the way. So I hope you found these tips on adjusting your mirrors and how to properly adjust them useful. If so, leave a comment below, or if you've got any other suggestions or ideas, leave a comment. We'll be continuing this discussion over on the forums. Man, the forums have really taken off, and we've got a really good group of writers over there that are here to help you, to help answer questions, or just talk motorcycles. So I hope that you'll join us on the forums, and you can get access to the forums by becoming a member on YouTube at MCrider.com/member or supporting the channel through Patreon, MCrider.com/support. You'll get access to the forum and the field guide with exercises designed to help make you a better rider. So until next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and we'll see you on the road. There are multiple ways to support the channel. You can become a member on YouTube at MCrider.com/member or support the channel through Patreon at MCrider.com/support. Either way, you'll get full access to the forum and the field guides, which will further the training that we release here on a weekly basis.